very good morning to everyone. And today I think it's a very important day for all of us, not only in India and globally. We all know what is happening, and the reason why we all have gathered here today is to understand the true facts and to dispel the myths that surrounds around Corona and the COVID-19. And we were wondering who would be the best person to invite to make us understand and deal with the situation, and also what is the current scenario in India and globally. So I actually happened to go to WHO and CDC meet last Thursday. The purpose of going there was at a Radisson to have a lunch with my friend. So my friend literally dragged me and said, you must meet a gentleman who truly has touched millions of lives, directly or indirectly, both in India and globally. And I take a great pleasure inviting on behalf of Chetinath Group, Dr. Jacob John, to come and deliver us a lecture on COVID-19 and the current scenario. Thank you very much, sir. And he would like to have an interactive session, whether during his talk or after his talk. He is willing to take as many questions as it is required. Thank you so much, sir. Now it is over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Prabhu Maya Kesavan, whom I met only very recently, as he said. Why don't you come a little forward? Yeah, fill up a little more of the front seats. Let me tell you about myself. I'm an unusual biomedical specialist. My skill and talent is looking at infectious diseases and looking at the way the microbes behave and then predict what's going to happen. That is a very unique line of thinking which not anyone else whom I have met in India has. It's in the branch of infectious disease epidemiology, but a little more of detective work attached to it. And that is, in that context only Dr. Prabhu and I met, because my talk there was describing a new disease which had missed others for about 30 years. So Dr. Prabhu, Dr. Kalpana, Dr. Priyadarshini, and all the other administrators, faculty members, students. Coronavirus that we talk about today, its official name is SARS coronavirus 2. SARS coronavirus, therefore, 1 was what caused the disease SARS. It appeared in Guangdong district in province in China. And then ARDS producing, pneumonia producing infection, identified as a coronavirus. The infection then was imported to Hong Kong, from Hong Kong to Vietnam, to Singapore, and so China, Hong Kong, Vietnam and Singapore became the 4 primary sources, can't say primary, sources of transmission to the rest of the world. That was in 2003, January onwards. The worry about SARS was that when people got infected with SARS, about 10% of mortality we call it case fatality. Okay, proportion of people die with that particular diagnosis, about 10%. So that was the reputation of that coronavirus, that it was a maybe slow spreader but major big killer. It was slow spreader because the receptors for the virus inside the body are in the lungs. For influenza, it's in the upper respiratory tract. So influenza is a fast spreader. SARS is a very slow or inefficient spreader. But influenza doesn't kill so many people. Even the pandemic H1N1, the case fatality was in the range of 0.1%. Here is SARS 10%. Another relative of these coronaviruses is the Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus, MERS coronavirus. All of them are bat viruses. Bat viruses don't come to humans directly, usually through an intermediate camels for MERS, palm civet for SARS, not yet identified for the new SARS coronavirus 2, but that's the sequence. It is that is the ecology of the origin of the virus and how it comes to humans. As you know, vertebrate viruses or infectious agents transmitting to humans and causing disease is called zoonotic infection, zoonotic infection. Zoonotic disease, zoonotic infection. These viruses, particularly SARS and the SARS-2, can easily be human adapted, and so human to human transmission can take off. That was the worry of SARS. That is the worry today of the new coronavirus. Human to human transmitted agents are called anthropogenic transmitters. Zoonotic, anthropogenic. So today, the SARS-2 COVID coronavirus infectious disease 19, that is the official name of the disease. The virus is SARS coronavirus type 2. So it's already become an anthropogenic infection. What happened with SARS was a poor spreader, I said. Infection in the lungs, influenza infection in the upper respiratory tract, easily spreading, weak spreader SARS. SARS could be blocked from transmission by identifying people with fever coming from China, Hong Kong, Vietnam or Singapore, anywhere else. And if you had fever and the travel history, then you quarantine them for, I think it was 14 days. And if you don't fall ill, you're okay. If you fall ill, test for SARS virus. India had 3 SARS positive and no further spread because of that efficient handling of a poorly spreading virus. Within 9 months of its identification in China or Hong Kong, identified I think in Hong Kong first, the transmission of SARS virus was completely interrupted. Now let's come back to H1N1. H1N1 pandemic, humans had 2 advantages with that. Number one, it may be a fast spreader, but its virulence is not very high. Previous pandemics, 1968, 1954, 1918, the viruses were brand new. No one had any immunity against it. So those pandemics were more devastating than the H1N1 because H1N1 was the cause of the 1956 pandemic. So a lot of people who were born since 56, before 68, had antibodies to H1N1. So the disease was not very severe among them. So plus H1N1 did not have very high virulence, although it probably more virulent than the then seasonal flu H3N2. H1N1, all the previous pandemics, the pandemic virus would replace the pre-pandemic virus completely. H2N2 disappeared. H1N1, 1918, had disappeared. But when H3N2 was circulating and when H1N1 came, H1N1 did not replace H3N2. So we have both H3N2 and H1N1 as endemic influenza. The virulence of the new coronavirus is lower than SARS, but appears to be higher than influenza. The transmission route, of course, is direct contact with human beings. What we say social contact. Transmission of infectious agents through social contact is the real meaning of contagion or contagious. There are many anthropootic infections that are transmitted through various forms of human-to-human contact. HIV, you know, but this one is contagious. So H1N1 is contagious, SARS was contagious, this one is also contagious. The worry is contagious infections can infect a whole population, a large proportion of population. So if you let the COVID-19 virus called SARS-CoV coronavirus type 2. So I will keep on calling coronavirus from now onwards because the other one is a little mouthful. So the worry about the coronavirus is it's a contagious spreader. What proportion of the population of India will get infected? It's anybody's guess. I don't think anybody has even thought about it in the higher-ups who worry about the problem in India. I have never seen anybody predicting what proportion will get infected. The general understanding is that the case fatality is somewhere around 2 to 3%, which is incorrect. I will come to that. Let's assume 1% case fatality. If 1% of people get infected, 1% of case fatality is no big deal. If 100% get infected, 1% case fatality in India would be 13,000 million, isn't it, our population? Okay, so 1% of that is 130 million. 130 million dying during a period of time when infection hits 100%. Of course, 100% will not get infected. But how many will get infected? 50%? 60%? It's not impossible or unthinkable or unlikely that anywhere less than 50% may not get infected. That is the real anxiety that I have in terms of India. Others are not very much worried about it. About case fatality, very interesting data coming out of the Chinese experience, that those who are, let me just refer to those who are 10 to 19 years, 0.2% case fatality. Those who are 20 to 29, 0.2% case fatality. Those who are 30 to 39, 0.2 case fatality. Those who are 40 to 49, 0.4 double case fatality. 50 to 59, 1.3% case fatality. 60 to 69, 3.6 case fatality. 70 to 79, 8% case fatality. So when you say average, average can hide a big range. Fortunately, the same Chinese paper said that there are a fairly large number of people whom they studied, about 80% would have mild symptoms. Some will have asymptomatic infection. How do you know they are infected? So they will not be tested in general. So if you remove that, which is an unknown proportion, 81% mild, 14% severe, 5% critical. So about 20% of those infected will have severe disease that requires sophisticated or careful, competent healthcare management. So the mortality or death rate, case fatality will depend upon three factors. One, you get infected. Two, your age, plus, I didn't go into detail, diabetes, hypertension, chronic heart disease, and presumably chronic lung disease. All these are mixed up with the age pattern that I mentioned to you, because the older you go, the more likely you have this. But these have been identified as specific risk factors for higher mortality. So, virulence, the predisposition, and the way you handle patients in the hospital. If you have ARDS and if you put oxygen mask and give oxygen, your probability of death is very high. You have to have more sophisticated, specialized pulmonology, intensive care unit therapy. So this is the prospects of the Indian scenario that worries me. It doesn't seem to worry others a whole lot. Now, why did I say 50%? I'm just guessing 50% because I don't want to scare everybody by saying a larger figure, and I don't want to lull you into false confidence saying a lower figure. That's why I'm calling 50%. H1N1, what proportion of Indians were infected during the pandemic period? There is no study. There is no information. So, H1N1 was a trainer of epidemiology of a new infectious disease for the Indian health management system. If you didn't learn a lesson, you fail. So you cannot predict based on, that's also a contagious infection. You cannot predict what's going to happen here. Now, infectious disease epidemiologists know that an anthropootic infection, if it has to survive in human communities, one infected person must result in at least one infected person, and that is called the reproductive number of that infection. If the reproductive number is less than 1, it's going away. If it is more than 1, it's an outbreak. Now, many infectious diseases are not absolutely 1 all the time. You may go above 1 outbreak, then you come below 1 trough, and then you go above 1 or you stay 1. So seasonal variations are very common for many infectious diseases, and it's well known for influenza also. And my greatest disappointment is we should have started preparing for a national disaster, national emergency, getting prepared on February 2. And today is March, what is today, 14th? We still haven't got it. So the buying time idea is what the whole world is doing. We are also following that ritual, like walking 7 times around Navagrahas. If you walk by left, you are right. If you walk by the right, no, you are running wrong. So we have made it into a ritual without understanding the meaning of this this ritual or this process or this routine. That's what scares me. That people who are at the helm of affairs are not understanding what they are doing. They are doing right, but they are not doing right with the right intentions, or cashing in with the good fortune that we had, that we are one of the latest countries beginning to spread. We had so much time. Now, why did February 2 was identified? I'm not watching time. Will somebody watch time, and when you've got 40-45 minutes, I can stop, because this story is Mahabharata. It's not going to end in a short time. The whole story became known to everybody towards the end of December 2019. February 2, when the second imported infection from Wuhan was identified in Kerala, it was showing us the way the wind was blowing. Chinese don't travel to India very much, but Chinese go all over the world. India is not a coveted destination for Chinese. We go to China, or medical students and all go to China and come back. So that is the major channel. On 2nd of February, when the first one of course is, first swallow doesn't make summer. But every summer must have a first swallow. Summer cannot begin without the first swallow. So the first one, okay, you count it out saying that it's a bad luck. When the second one comes, they say this is the rule and not the exception. And the third one came within 2 days. So we had 3 infected people coming into Kerala and identified, all of them quarantined, no secondary transmission from them. Kudos for Kerala management, because they had been trained in 2018 with Nipah virus. So they were all. If I say the name Tilly Smith, does that make any sense to you? Tilly Smith, that name, anyone? No. Tilly Smith was a 10-year-old schoolgirl from Surrey, UK, very near London. She was with her parents in Phuket, in Thailand, for a seaside holiday. Before coming to Thailand, 2 weeks earlier, the geography teacher in the school that she was going, she's only 10 years old, his name is Andrew Kearney. Andrew Kearney took a class on tsunami. And he said, tsunami occurs in places like Southeast Asia is well known, other places tsunami can occur, what tsunami is, and he said how tsunami begins, and he said the sea shoreline recedes into the ocean. That's a phenomenon. Doesn't happen at other times. It recedes, and there will be turbulence on the sea water. Then the sea wall will rise. There's a very high peak. The whole thing will hit the shore. That is a tsunami. Tilly Smith saw on the beach the seashore receding. She immediately said to her parents, "Dad, Mom, this is tsunami. Get out of here. Go to the hotel. The hotel is within reach. We can see the hotel. Go to the uppermost floor and call all the people around." There were about a total of 100 people, including the hotel staff who were in the hotel. She and her parents forced everybody to go up. Within a few minutes, that entire place was washed out. And you know the tsunami story, how many people were killed. This 10-year-old girl saved at least 100 lives because of the power of knowledge. Okay? So that is the kind of warning that I am alerting the system, saying that you must anticipate something big when you see the beginnings of something big. Now, this is not tsunami-like. Those who read my Hindu article, I use the word avalanche. Avalanche is a small snowflakes falling in the top of the mountain. It looks like nothing, small. Then it, as falls, it gathers more snow. And when it hits the ground, it's a huge mountain coming down. That's the avalanche. That's what we are facing. Okay? You can complacently say only a very small number, only 80 cases, whereas other countries have thousands of cases. No. You have to be prepared for a disaster, and this is a national emergency, and we haven't yet, it has not hit the people who are at the helm of affairs between their eyes to saying that this is a serious business. Just to give you some numbers. So February 2, when we should have stood up and thought about it, 24 countries outside China, Hong Kong and Macau have been infected. 24 countries. That is like the sea receding for Tilly Smith. If that was not a warning signal, then I don't know what it was. And then from that 24, it steadily went. Within a month, I think it has grown to nearly 100. Okay? So, they say that ostriches hide their heads under sand. No ostriches hide their heads under sand. Humans hide their heads under sand and then mock the ostriches. Today, the epicenter has shifted from China to Europe. Why? Because European-Chinese contacts are far stronger, far more volume of travel between the country both ways. Europeans in China and Chinese in Europe. The famous German person who got infected for the first time, a Japanese lady, and he was in a committee. That's all. And she went home and she fell sick. When she went back, this man got infected and he got admitted and he did well. Spain, 3,146 as of yesterday. Germany, 2,745 as of yesterday. Spain had 86 deaths. Germany had 6 deaths. So the death numbers are also not uniformly distributed. Iran had 10,075 cases, 429 had died. So for 1,075, 1% is 100, 2% is 200, 3% is 300, 4% is 400, 469 have died. South Korea, on the other hand, the mortality rate is only less than 1% in spite of the large numbers they have. So it is not the virus alone that is killing, it is the medical healthcare system that does not prevent death if you are not well prepared. And my final point is, can health be managed? And what is managing health means? If disease is endogenously produced, nobody can do anything about it. If disease is by a supernatural, God's punishment, karma, fate, they are not under human control. But if disease has environmental risk factors and societal, social risk factors, then they are manageable. This is what the European medicine taught us the last 300, 400 years ago. So the modern medicine used science as a way to observe, interpret and predict and prevent. In India, for us, mostly speaking, science is looking at something and describing. So you say, okay, 100 infected, sort of splash. Next thing you say 200 infected, you say 200 infected. They're always looking at the numbers and interpreting them. They're not using science to predict what's going to happen tomorrow, day after tomorrow, in 1 month, in 6 months, in 1 year's time. If you don't do that, you're not planning for the future. We are not making use of the time that nature allowed us to prepare for ourselves. So health management in the modern medical system, science-based, consists of 3 legs. The first is public health. Now, public health does not tolerate any communicable disease. So, where there is public health, there will be no typhoid fever, no cholera, no malaria. Okay? Why? Because public health addresses the environmental and social factors of transmission and breaks those chains of transmission. That's the job of public health. They are not doctors at all. In other words, public health people will not see any patient except to see whether that patient has a microbe in that person or not. Or to ask some questions as to where did you eat in the last 1 month. In the state of Colorado, in one particular county, a person was diagnosed with typhoid fever, reported under the surveillance system to the county public health office. The county public health office immediately sent out a questionnaire to all the, there was no other clinical case. All the other microbiological laboratories saying that if you see any isolate of Salmonella typhi, inform us. 2 labs reported, that is so 3 typhoid cases. Those patients somehow missed the surveillance system. So with these 3 people, they went and, the public health people went and asked them, tell us all that you did in the last 1 month. The incubation period of typhoid is about 2 weeks. So 1 month meaning you scratch your head and go back and lo and behold, all 3 had eaten in one particular restaurant. Immediately you go to the restaurant and say, anybody here who had typhoid fever? No. Anybody who had traveled to typhoid endemic areas? One person said, I have. 22 staff members were stool tested and one was a typhoid carrier. So the restaurant was closed. All people were given paid holiday for some time. This person was treated with azithromycin and 3 stools had to be negative before he was allowed to come back and work. That's public health. Doctors cannot do public health. These people are mostly MPH and PhDs and not medical doctors. So public health is one leg of the health management system. Intolerance of infectious diseases. The second is what you cannot prevent, you have to treat. So healthcare is the second pillar or second leg of this edifice. And we all know healthcare. And we all know the way healthcare is organized in India. There is a system in the chaotic arrangement. Okay, there are government healthcare, private healthcare. The government healthcare can be of different standards. Some are excellent standard, some are atrocious standard. You go to a district hospital with fever, they don't have a blood culture facility. Most district hospitals cannot do blood culture. So the doctor will look at it, okay, I will treat you for typhoid fever, for malaria, and then you have dengue, could be, so I will give you drug for all fevers. That's the way we manage healthcare. Anyway, the third leg of the stool is research. Research is to contextualize the Western international stipulations and prescriptions to our context. Is the diabetes treatment that they give, diabetes, the cutoffs of the blood sugar is appropriate for our population, is blood pressure appropriate? I'm just giving you two very small examples, but then the whole lot, the drug absorption, we are all small people compared to Westerners, and there are many others. When it comes to coronavirus, how is it spreading, how fast it's spreading, what is the R0, what is the R number, how many people are already immune, a whole lot of things are, in the beginning research questions, they become public health questions the day after tomorrow. So these three are necessary for health management. We don't have public health. The Government of India does not have a public health department under the Directorate General of Health Services. The NCDC, National Center for Disease Control, is expected to do public health, but they don't have a presence in every district or every city. So there is virtually no public health. Healthcare, you know how it is. Research, I don't have to say anything to you. You all know how much of research we do. So today, as of yesterday, there are 120 countries with the coronavirus. We are at the beginning of the wave. We have not reached the top, we have not reached the cusp. We have no idea how high it will go and how far it will go. If you think that summer will protect us, that's wishful thinking. If you don't take responsibility today, what happens tomorrow is anybody's guess. So I'm leaving you with this thought. Unfortunately, there's nothing that you and I can do about it, but you apply the common sense and then apply it into the hospital environment. I have not touched any of that because you are the experts and I am not the expert in hospital infection control management. Unfortunately, in India, hospitals are well known, notorious for tuberculosis transmission. So I grieve for hospitals and their staff in terms of influenza transmission, and today in terms of coronavirus transmission. So before coronavirus is going to be widespread in the community, which we have to expect, if not today, tomorrow. If not this summer, this winter. If not then, in the rainy season. By this time, your organization should be pakka, your staff and their families should be protected, and there should be minimal transmission between infected person and uninfected person. Thank you very much.